Okay, so I've been wanting to do this for quite a long time, and it's a video review of the 3D Tender 320 Ultimate. We've had this rib for about how long have we had this rib? 1 year?
2 years, I'd say, or a year and a half.
We've had this rib for about 2 years, 2.5 years. So I wanted to give some feedback in terms of how I found it after using it now, cruising around all around the UK and now cruising around the Med, in terms of the things that we like about it and the things that we don't like about it. Let's start off with the first challenge, shall we say, with this dinghy. So I'm going to talk about the weight. So we bought this dinghy because it's advertised on the 3D Tender website as, I think, 40 something kilos, 46 kilos. However, I couldn't quite believe that it was that light when we were handling it on the boat. So I bought a crane scale and I measured the weight of the dinghy.
Flashback.
So I have had my suspicions about the 3D Tender, and I'm going to include this as part of my video review that I haven't done for a while. I've done the videos but not the review. So we bought the 3D 320 Ultralight. It's marketed as 46 kilos. And I wasn't convinced about that when me and Kim have been trying to lift it out.
It's heavy.
It's a lot heavier than, we think it's a lot heavier than it looks. You've still got some weight on the back actually. If you let that off a bit. There you go. Oh yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So I bought a 250 kilo weigh scale, and the 46 kilo dinghy weighs in at 65 or 70 kilos. So it's oscillating there between 65 and 70, 75.
If you push it off the boat slightly?
Yeah, it's just because we're tilting a bit. So the likeliness is it's going to be somewhere between 65 and 75. So let's call it around 70. So that is significantly heavier than the advertised weight of 46 kilos. I'm actually pretty disappointed because I spent a lot of time researching this dinghy. I saved up a lot of time and money to buy it, and then now to find out that it actually weighs, what, 20 kilos, 30 kilos more than it had been advertised.
It's now too heavy for our davits, basically.
Yeah, so we bought it because we were planning to hang it off the davits on the back. But it's actually, is that 30 kilos heavier?
Yeah.
30 kilos heavier than advertised.
I think we weren't that weak.
Yeah, I didn't think I was that. I knew I was. I think I'm like unfit. That's like a whole new world.
End of flashback.
So for me, that's the biggest disappointment with this dinghy, because we got rid of our old fiberglass rib, which was 95 kilos, and it looks like we've traded down a little bit in weight. We've lost about 20 kilos, but it's still too heavy to go on our davits, which is really frustrating. So it's quite a big investment, and that is probably my biggest disappointment. Now, other than that, there's a lot of good things to say about it, and from a weight perspective, I did have someone who was interested in buying it this summer, and they were able to hoist it on the back of their lagoon. I think it was a 40-foot lagoon, no problem at all. Literally pulled it up in 2 seconds with the outboard on. So if you've got a big cat and you can lift heavy things on the back of it, then this is probably fine. If you've got a mono hull and your davits aren't going to be able to carry a full, 75, 80 kilos, then that might be a problem for you. Okay, going on to the rest of the dinghy in terms of the good bits. So things that I quite like about this: the storage lockers at the front are good. These clasps are almost about to fail. You can see that's almost over, that one, which is a shame because it's only been about 2 years and it's already kind of died off. And that's not with any extreme use particularly, but it's quite handy because you've got a bit of space for a spare fuel tank in the front. We normally have a little anchor in here as well, so that when we're going places we can anchor up. This little hatch here doesn't actually do anything, that just goes to the front. Then we've got a fuel tank. So there's a fuel tank here, I think it's about 20 litres. As you can see, the original cap that came with it has degraded significantly. I think they've stopped using these caps now and they just have a standard screw on, but obviously that is needing to be replaced because that gives straight into the empty tank. We had to run our own fuel line for this, I think it came partially with a fuel line, then we had to do some extra bit, but there we go. In terms of handles on this boat, they're fairly well positioned. These oar locks are generally exactly where you want to be sitting when you're steering, so I generally sit just ahead of them. They're quite frustrating, but they have to be there, I guess. So perhaps they could come up with a system that was a little bit less intrusive. Maybe just like soft oar locks would be quite good rather than the hard ones, given that most people don't row their dinghies that often. Other good things about this, so beyond the kind of internal features, these handles are all generally quite good. The ones at the front don't really serve much good. They might help a little bit pulling up the beach. This one is the furthest forward one that you can reach in general, so that's a little frustrating. So it could be really good to have one of these handles just a bit further set back, or just all of them set maybe back to here, and then you've actually got something to hold on when you're zipping around. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the space inside here. So this is 320, so it's 3.2 meters. I can fit all of our kite gear in here, so I can get 2 kites, 2 or 3 boards, all our lines, safety equipment, boards, everything in one dinghy trip if we're going kite surfing. So that makes quite a big difference when you want to go somewhere if you've got enough space. So the downside of the weight, the pro side of having all the space is really worthwhile. I think most of the weight comes from this double floor. So this is a floor on top of the floor on below, and then obviously you've got this space at the front. So all that extra fiberglass in the extra aluminium in the dinghy is going to make some significant dent on the weight. One of the biggest pros on this dinghy is the handling. So one of the things that I've found really impressive compared to the old fiberglass, we had an old fiberglass Zodiac. The handling on this is significantly better, just even not moving stability wise. When you're standing in the dinghy and it's on the water, it really doesn't rock as much as the old one. And when you're powering along with the outboard, it really does plane very, very early. So you start planing at about 10 knots, which is quite good. And then it'll go all the way up to, with this 20 horsepower and a standard propeller, we get up to about 20 knots top speed with one person. Speed is obviously one of the things a lot of people care about when they're buying a dinghy, so this is the biggest outboard it recommends for this dinghy. From a weight perspective, it doesn't really make a difference between the 20, the 15 and the 10 for these outboards. They all weigh more or less the same. They're about within 5 or 6 kilos of each other, so it's about 10 or 12 pounds. Speed wise, like I said, about 20 knots with one person. But I have managed to get it on the plane with 4 before, so if you can get 4 adults in here, you can get it onto the plane if it's not too rough a day. 3 adults, you're always on the plane, no problem whatsoever. What else is interesting to say about this? It's got these useful handles here, so these handles are very handy if you want to pull it in. The fact that you've got one on either side is a good indicator that you probably need 3 people if you want to carry this up the beach. It does have, which we have not got fitted here, but have bought some optional wheels that go on the back here. So there are some proper fold down wheels, not the kind of plasticky ones, but proper stainless or aluminium wheels, in pump up wheels that you can use to pull up beaches. We have used them sometimes. They are sometimes useful. I found in general in sand they sink in, so that's not been great. So last but not least, let's talk about the durability of this dinghy. So one of the best things about having a metal bottom dinghy is it's nice and hard. You can see we've had a few scrapes as we pulled it up rocks on various beaches, but overall the bottom has had very, very little damage. One slight disappointment is the paint job on this. It has gained bubbles when kind of like, a little bit like osmosis style bubbles under the paint, where it's popped off and chipped away. But other than that, in general, for 2 years of use sitting on the deck and being in the water, it's fared fairly well. Most of this damage is actually from our windlass, from where it's been sitting on the front of the boat rather than going up and down beaches. As you can see, it's still in pretty good condition. If I move out of the way, I'll be able to even see that better. So yeah, very little damage overall. The Hypalon's been great, so it's not a PVC one, this one's Hypalon, so you pay a little bit extra, but then you get that sun protection. I would say one thing that I probably regret from buying this dinghy is not having bought the chaps at the same time, so you can buy covers that sit on top of it. I thought we'd make our own with some kind of joyous beam, but actually we have never got around to it, so that's a bit frustrating. That's all for now with this review. So overall, it's not a bad dinghy. It is a bit disappointing about the weight. In fact, very disappointing. At some point we're going to have to sell this one and buy another dinghy. And I hope that with 3D Tender having hopefully seen this video, they'll update their website so that the dinghy is the correct weight rather than the fictional one that they have up at the moment. That's all from me. Hope you like this video. If you're interested in more stuff on our boat, just check out our channel, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.